Welcome to the Student Ministry Podcast. My name is Steve Cullum, and this is episode 53 of the Student Ministry Podcast, featuring a conversation that I had with my friend David Reed. Now, David has been in ministry for a number of years, and it was cool to just talk to him about the longevity he's had in ministry and being in ministry just for the long haul, especially at the same location for a really long time, and just the benefits of all that. But we also got to talk about ministry during this COVID-19 pandemic, and with the quarantine on us and everything that we had to change and pivot around ministry. And it was just a really cool conversation. So I'm looking forward to you guys hearing about that today and hearing what we got to talk about. But before we jump into all that, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you so much for sharing this with others. If you haven't yet, make sure you do share it with others in youth ministry, others in student ministry that need to hear these awesome stories from other youth workers. And if you haven't left a positive review, I was just going to ask that you please do that. That helps us know what you like, but it also helps us kind of rise in the charts a little bit. Not because we want to be the best or anything, but the higher that we get, the more people that can hear these awesome stories and can find us. So please do that. But also, if you have not subscribed, at least do that. Find your favorite podcast app, maybe the thing that you're listening to this podcast right now on, whether that's iTunes or Google Play or Spotify or whatever you're using to listen to this. Please subscribe on that same platform. That way you just get every episode as it comes out. We also want to thank our sponsor for this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast, and that's G-Shades Student Curriculum. G-Shades is not just a curriculum, but it's also a teaching strategy focused on helping students see everyday life situations through the lens of the gospel. A lot of us in youth ministry do some things unintentionally, like talk about the gospel only when we're giving an altar call. Or sometimes we teach students to do as Jesus did, but we don't teach them to see as Jesus sees. And sometimes we give them a fractured picture of the faith by teaching biblical principles and practices without actually tying them down to their gospel foundation. So in an effort to try something different, G-Shades is a curriculum designed to help you produce confident, gospel-focused students who are able to use their gospel lens to navigate the complexities of modern culture. Many of us are in youth ministry professionally, and when it comes to the gospel, we naturally model it to our students. But G-Shade's goal is to help youth pastors teach it to their students. Each series comes with message manuscripts, small group leader guides, parent guides, daily Instagram devotionals, games, graphic slides, and even bumper videos. You can download a free week of G-Shades student curriculum at gshades.org. And when you order, please use the promo code STUMINPOD to receive 5% off your order. That's STUMINPOD to receive 5% off your order. And we thank G-Shades for sponsoring this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast. And with all that being said, let's jump into this conversation I had with David Reed. Well, thanks so much for being with us, David. So glad you're here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Well, we're going to start with talking about your story, as I do with all of our guests, because I've known you for a little bit now through mostly through Downland Youth Ministry. It's been cool to hang out almost on an annual basis for a while. But maybe there's some people out there that don't yet know David Reed. So let's jump into your story. Let's hear a little bit about how you became a Christian, but also your calling into ministry and how all that went down.
Yeah, sure. Glad to do that. Well, I got, like many people, grew up in a Christian home, and my dad is a pastor and has been for all my whole life and more. And my mom was the church organist. And so, grew up in the church, and people always joke and say that, they were there every time the church doors were open. And I said, I was there then and when they were closed too.
Yeah.
Mom would be practicing and Dad would be working on a sermon, and we'd be running around in the church, and hanging out. So, obviously heard about, Jesus my entire life, from the time I was a baby through, even today. And so, hearing about Jesus and being brought up in that atmosphere, as a child, about 7 years old, started asking questions, being inquisitive and all that. And I remember laying in bed one night waiting on my dad to come in and tell us goodnight. And I asked him, hey, Dad, how do you become a Christian? And so we, went out it was on a Saturday night, I remember, and we went out into the living room and sat down, and my dad is really good. He does a great job explaining the gospel to all ages. And he had, all kinds of little tracts and things to work with kids and to make sure it was simple. And I remember him, going through that with me and talking to me about it. And it was all stuff I'd heard. But it just began to click at that point. And as a 7-year-old, understood at that as much as I could understand what it meant to become a Christian. And so prayed and received Christ. And we talked a little longer, and I think he wanted to make sure, I understood everything. And so, a few months later, we made it public and got baptized and, did the thing there. And so really and truly, it was a journey from there. It really was. It was never, I guess I had an aha moment, but not just this charismatic feeling, or anything like that. It was an aha moment for sure, but definitely a journey began at that point. And so, growing up there in the church, I had strong youth ministry. We called the church my dad served in at the time, called it its first youth pastor. And so he was there and came in 7th grade and had him from middle school and high school, and had great ministry background there, all kinds of experiences. And so I grew my faith and, began to be challenged and wanted to be at church. And I wasn't, I guess, a typical preacher's kid. I wanted to be involved. I wanted to follow God in my life. And I certainly wasn't perfect. I had definitely had moments of where but it wasn't like a complete falling away. It was one of those things where I wanted to make Christ something, a part of who I was. And I wanted people to know that as well. And so I was always involved in that. And, my dad was probably one of the biggest influences in my life and still is to this day in ministry. And I'll talk a little bit more about kind of my call here in just a minute, because he played a major role in that. But I just remember growing up and I stayed, the town that we lived in has a university. And so when I graduated from high school, I just stayed here and went to college, Stephen F. Austin, and began to get involved in ministry there. We're Baptist church, so I got involved in our Baptist ministry on campus and got involved in our church here. Our youth minister became college minister my freshman year, and so I continued with him, and he obviously played a major role in my life. Began to give me some experiences in ministry and to just kind of give me little bits and pieces of things to be involved in, because he did youth and college at that point. And so I would help him out with college, and then I'd help him out with youth. And so began to have those experiences. And college was definitely a growing time for me. It was a searching time for me. I really struggled with what was my role? What was I supposed to do? I guess looking for God's will for my life. That's the question I think all college students ask, is what is God's will for my life? And so I began to really struggle. And in that sense of looking for my role and what I was supposed to do. And, growing up in the church, I do not want to be a pastor. I do not want to be in the church. I want to be in the church, but I don't want to be a minister. And, but yet in the back of my mind, I just kind of had this thing going on. And I think I fought it for a long time. Fought it in school. I, took some majors. I was a music major for a while because I enjoy music, and that was miserable. And I was a business major for a while because I thought I wanted to make money. And I squeezed 4 years of college into 7, so, but I was really struggling. And I remember there was a semester that I made the dean's list, only it was the dean's list that says, we need you to take a semester off because you're
that dean's list.
bliss, yes. And so, I took a semester off and really began to just say, why am I doing this? What's going on? What do you have for me, God? And I remember there was a couple that taught in our college department, and we sat down over at their house one night. We had a big fellowship, and I remember her just saying, David, what do you enjoy in life? And I said, man, the two biggest things I enjoy are I enjoy playing sports and I said I love being at church and I love doing stuff. And I was working part time at our church too, as like a recreation assistant. So and so she said, well, why are you not doing ministry? And that was kind of, I guess, an aha moment where I started thinking, okay, all right, God, you're calling me into this. And so I began to talk to people and talk to our college minister and talk to my dad. And I remember my dad saying this was probably it was, now I look back on it, a very wise thing to ask me. But at the time I was like, why are you saying this? But he asked me, he just said, David, I want to try to talk you out of this because there are many times that I have wanted to quit, but didn't because of my calling. And so you need to make sure that God has called you into this. And so at the time I was a little, surprised that he would say that. I know the wisdom there now was that I went back and really just prayed. And it was a few months later I started working got my first opportunity to work for a camp, Centrifuge Camps, and did a summer there. It pushed me back a semester. I was going to graduate in 6.5 years instead of 7. But I really I got that opportunity to do it. And so got to spend that. And that whole summer, God just affirmed my love for working with teenagers, doing ministry. And, you're thrown into the deep end of the pool there. And so got exposed to all kinds of situations with working with kids and just fell in love with it. And I remember my parents came over to see me one day at camp, and as they were getting out of the car, a youth minister walked up to us and said, hey, David, and one of his girls who was in my Bible study accepted Christ last night. She said it was because of something you said in Bible study. And I was like, wow, what'd I say? But my parents, that's the first thing they heard was and so my dad said, absolutely, you're called to this. And so just a reaffirmation. So when I came back, just started in busting it to try to get done with school. So, because I knew seminary was on the horizon and I wanted to go to seminary and do all that. And so I finished, graduated, continued working for camp, and really I just really probably cut my teeth working for camp, working for Centrifuge, and just learned so much and did a lot of different jobs for them with Centrifuge. So that was an affirmation for me. Went to seminary and all that was affirmed. I'm glad to be through with seminary. It was experience, but I'm glad it's over. But God affirmed me along the way and really continues to affirm me now. This many years after all that happened, God continues to affirm my call. That I still have a passion for teenagers and passion for serving the Lord. So I guess that's my story.
Cool. That's awesome. A big part of my early calling into ministry also has to do with camp. And I think that's one of the greatest places. I feel like if there are young potential youth pastors out there that are considering going into ministry, camp is a fantastic way to cut your teeth and because it's going to tell you if you're cut out or not because you're doing daily life with those students, and if you're going to enjoy that, if it's going to go well or is it not, you're going to figure out how to work with those kids. It's a great place to learn.
I learned so much even just in a summer. That I would have probably taken me 3 to 5 years to learn, and just working in a local church. Yeah. So it was most fun summers I've ever had. I'd go back and do them again today if I could. Lifelong friends from it, people I served with, but just the intensity of it. You sleep for a week when you're done, because you're just intense and gosh, man, God taught me so much through those times working for them. So I agree. I encourage it. If you're a youth minister or an aspiring youth minister, go do a camp. It'll teach you, let you know really quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been at your current ministry for quite a while now, right? Is it And to do my math in my head, is it 13? No, or 23 years?
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting story. I've been doing ministry for 26 years total.
Okay.
I'm in my 26th year. Just in June, we'll finish my 26th year, start 27, which is, golly, that just feels like I just started. It really has flown by. But been at my church 13 years. And that's a unique story there, too. I'm serving in my home church.
Ah.
Yeah, and that's that.
And quickly, how do you pronounce the name of the town? Because I looked at it and I have no idea. I'm just going to let David take care of this.
Yeah. No, the town is Nacogdoches, Texas. It's the oldest town in Texas. It's really old, and it's a college town. Stephen F. Austin State University is here. It's where I went to school. Go Lumberjacks. But we, it's in deep East Texas. We call the pretty part of Texas. There's trees and hills, and it's not flat and barren like most people think Texas are. It's actually really pretty. So, that's a unique story. When I came out of seminary, I just knew I would be in Texas all my life. I'm a lifelong Texan and just knew it. And God had other plans. And, when I began to interview, I wasn't getting any calls from churches in Texas. It was outside of Texas. And so I just knew God was saying something to me, and ended up my first church. It was in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Some really incredible experiences. If you know much about the Baptist world, that's the belt buckle of the Bible Belt. Yeah. And that's where the Centrifuge headquarters are with Lifeway. And so I continued, I began, and I look back and see how God, maybe not had all these aha moments, but I look back and see how God has used my experiences to shape me, mold me into the youth minister I have, and got to be around some incredible people and do some incredible things. Met my wife up there, and then moved her to the promised land of Texas. But 13 years ago, the church I was serving in called me. My dad was the senior pastor, and they without talking to him, the search committee called him and said, hey, would you consider coming home? And I went, I don't know, going home, little David Reed's coming home. That's what I kept thinking. And my wife and I just discussed it, and we said, let's send a resume and see what happens. And about 3 months later, we were making a move. And so it was great. Got to work with my dad for 9 of those 13 years, almost 10. He retired and is enjoying retirement, still staying busy doing preaching, but would not trade that experience of getting to serve and do ministry with my dad. Golly, I wouldn't trade that for the world. It was the best. So it's really good.
That's awesome.
So 13 years.
Wow. So we are recording this. I normally don't even say this, but I think it's pertinent for our current situation right in the middle of this whole coronavirus stuff. Yeah. We're recording this today on April 25th. So we're pretty much still right in the middle of everything going on. So David, you've got a lot of years of experience in youth ministry, which I love the longevity there, and especially not only longevity in ministry, but longevity to specific churches. And it seems like some of that even came probably, I don't know if you've ever really considered it, but when I was hearing your story, it seems like you're a youth pastor, starting with you and carrying on with you. That probably was some of the examples that you had, and it seems like you're following in that. But things are changing. All of a sudden, after 26, 27 years of ministry, things are different now. So I'd love to talk about what your ministry looks like, but maybe we can kind of take it at 2 different angles. What's your quote unquote normal ministry look like? And then what does it look like currently in the situation? So what's things normally look like for you in youth ministry there?
Yeah, well, I would think, if you probably looked at my ministry, it would look like most everyone's ministry, across the nation is, we do our largest group time Wednesday night. We do a kind of a worship time, and a typical Wednesday night with music and games and teaching, and we split our youth group is split into between middle school and high school. So on Wednesday nights I do a middle school time from 6 to 7 and a high school time from 7 to 8. And so 2 hours of youth ministry for me, and that the schools kind of dictated that for us as far as when they finish up with their programming, high schools and stuff with practices and all that kind of stuff. So we do 2, and pretty much the same thing. But we have a youth band that does, and then myself, or I have an intern program, and I work with them as far as teaching them to teach as well. And so they get opportunities to teach, but mainly I'm the main teacher for that. And we do some discipleship groups on Sunday night. We call them D6 groups. They come into our youth group at 7th grade. So we have a 6th grade ministry that's actually in part of our children's ministry, but it's a preteen ministry that's separated from really both. And so they come to me in 7th grade. And so 6 years with me. And so that's why we call it D6, Disciple Programs. And fortunate to have college students from Stephen F. Austin here, and they run those for me. They're our small group leaders, and they do different kinds of Bible studies with them and things like that. So we do that. And then of course we're a Baptist church. We're a First Baptist church. And so we have Sunday school on Sunday morning and traditional things like that. We even do youth choir, and which is, we have our worship guy is a really close friend of mine, and he is amazing with our kids. They love him. He goes to camp with me. When we go to on mission trips and youth choir trips, I go with him. And so it's a really neat partnership the two of us have together, and enjoy that. And our kids like it and fun. So, big numbers, probably half of our youth group is in choir. So,
wow.
So yeah, which is just not the typical thing,
Right.
When I came here, they were still doing it. I was like, really? And then I just saw that it worked, and a lot of it is based on the things that he does with them and has fun with them. So we do those things, and I have a great group of volunteers. I have about 25 volunteers that help me out on Sunday mornings, and they do a lot. I really am under the belief that it's ministry as a team. It's not me. And so as we train and I tell my Sunday school teachers, hey, this is your youth group. It's your responsibility to contact them and teach them and stay in touch with them. I'm going to be doing that too. I'm right there with you. I'm going to be giving you the tools. I'm going to be contacting them and all that kind of stuff. And so that's, something we do there on Sunday nights. Then we do, camps, retreats, and mission trips. And I'm really big on missions. We do a lot of mission work. We try to do things around our community, and probably going to be forced to do that this year. We can talk more about it later, but we try to do some things in our local area and try to do some things across our state. And then in high school, we take them. They have the opportunity to go on 2 international trips before they graduate.
Okay.
We try to do some kind of mission trip for them for that. We were scheduled to go to Puerto Rico this summer, but that all changed.
Yeah.
And everything. So, so that's kind of what I guess I would say our ministry looks like. Very relationship oriented. I'm very relational. That's probably, if you had asked me what my gifts were, that would be number one. It was, I love to, as you can tell, I love to talk and love to talk with people, and I'm an extrovert. And so relationship oriented, and, that's how I train our people to be as well. So
nice.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the way it looked.
Right. It did look. Yeah. So what have things been like over the last few weeks, and almost like it's been over a month now, I guess, since most of this has been in quarantine. So I'm sure some things have changed. Maybe some things are basically the same, just kind of look a little different. So what's ministry like during the pandemic?
In the pandemic, yeah, I would say it's way different. It's we went on spring break, and then came out of this at the end of the spring break we had here was when the school started shutting down in Texas, and so even though we've been like 6 weeks in the pandemic, our kids have been out for 7 because they're on spring break, so they're getting really close to 2 months here. And so yeah, it's, it's been really different. I think, there were a couple of revelations for me. One for sure is I wasn't as connected as I thought I wanted to be. As far as, the core kids that come all the time, but those that were on the fringe who maybe just showed up on Wednesday night, but maybe came every Wednesday, but weren't plugged into the life of our church. I've had the hardest time trying to get up with those students. We'll kind of be and so I've really worked hard on trying to connect. And I guess that may be the extrovert and the relationship person in me. But, I'm in the process of writing every one of our kids. I've written my hand is hand cramps, from writing just notes telling them, hey, here's my contact information, hey, we miss you, that kind of stuff. And just been dropping letters in the mail every day, just trying to get in touch with everybody. And our volunteers have been doing the same thing and stuff like that. So I think that's been one of the biggest things is just trying to connect with everybody as we're doing, we call it, our ministry is called The Porch. Reason being is our set looks like an old-timey front porch.
Nice.
And so we call it The Porch. And so we say everything is the porch. The porch this, the porch that. So now we say the porch is online. And so that's what we kind of call Sunday night, zooming on the porch kind of thing. And so we do our Bible study on Sunday nights, and how that's different is normally when on Sunday mornings, I had a responsibility of eating donuts and talking to kids, and our Sunday school teachers did all the teaching. Well, now I'm doing the teaching and the prepping, and then through the miracles of Zoom, can put them into breakout groups and let them do discussion and just kind of hang out. Okay. So that's a little different. It's kind of almost morphed a Wednesday night into a Sunday night. Sunday school and all that. So we still do that. I try to do a game night every night. I mean, not every night, once a week, every week. We try to find a night where we all get on and do games and play and do some stuff like that. And then on Wednesday nights, I just kind of I call it Insta Live, and it's just a 20-minute stupid, funny, quick devotion at the very end, just to stay connected. And so, there's no, it's low production, and so our media guy is so having to do so much stuff. He doesn't have time to spend time. He's just a one-man show. And so he doesn't have time to do a whole big thing for me. But so we just kind of make it fun, just trying to connect. I've been on social media so much, just trying to stay connected. My eyeballs are square, from looking at maybe even, like an iPhone kind of up and rectangular. I would say, I'm not hitting, I'm probably hitting maybe half on a regular basis of what we normally would hit. When I talk, it's great to have a 15-year-old daughter because she can kind of help me. Yeah. And she's wonderful with that. She loves doing that. And so when she talks to kids and tries to get them on, they're just like, I'm tired of being on Zoom, I'm tired of doing this. And so they may show up, they may not, and so we're just, we're trying to give them little nuggets of information. I drop stuff on social media. I send out a text with a Bible verse, just trying to, keep a little bit of Jesus in front of them all the time. And so, I guess that's how it's changed. I'm working 3 times as hard as I was before. I took a day off. I took a day off Tuesday this week. The first time I've taken a day off in a month.
Oh, wow.
And I just said, I'm not doing anything. I went and played golf. I went and just said, I'm not doing a thing youth ministry wise. And I just realized, man, I'm tired. It's a different kind of tired. You may not be working, in the office at 8 a.m. because our office isn't at home. But I find myself at 10 o'clock at night, cranking out stuff on my computer stuff too. So it's definitely different. Trying to, but still the same. You're just trying to connect with kids and give them little bits of Jesus along the way. So
yeah. I think one of the big things that stood out to me in our conversation today is that, like, you even said it, your ministry is built around relationships, and it seems that's still the same. It may look different. It's online relationships instead of in person, but it's still, trying to make sure that you are connecting with your leaders and those students as much as you can to build those relationships during that time. Yeah. So what, I guess, is there anything that you've learned through this time that maybe even taking into account all the years in youth ministry, like is there anything that like you're picking up on? They're like, yeah, this is maybe even things that you can even put in practice in your ministry when we go back to, quote unquote, normal life again.
I think, I'm still figuring that question out. What's going to look different? I know it's going to look different. I don't think anyone knows what church is going to look like when this comes back. There's a lot of people speculate, even on our staff. We think we're like, what is even Sunday morning is going to look like? People are going to flopped back and I said, what is camp going to look like if we even get to have camp this summer? I said one of two things are going to happen. Either parents are going to say, no, I'm not, I don't feel safe, or they're going to be like, I'm so tired of my kid, please take him for a month,
Yeah. I actually just had a parent tell me that the other day when I was asking them what their opinion of camp this year. And they're like, right now I go back and forth. Like I could be still pretty protective, or I could say, take him off my hands. I'm tired of him.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question because I know there's some things I'm going to do. I'm going to have more of a presence on social media. Not that I wasn't doing anything, but I wasn't doing enough. And I've got a couple of students who help me with that. I'm going to empower more students to do that ministry, to help me with that ministry. I don't want to put them completely in charge because you never know what can happen. But at least, they can I've got a girl that helps me with it right now. And I just say, hey, I want to put this out there. And it just turned her loose, and she is so creative and able to put some things on there. My own daughter is another one the same way. She helps me with social media, and I can say, hey, I want to put this, out on Snapchat or what. I don't do Snapchat. I'll let her do that. But, Instagram and everything. And so she helps me with that. And I think I'm probably I was beginning to do a little bit of this before our ministry kind of went into this weird place. Was beginning to empower students more to do ministry. And I was really taking some steps to really make that a focus. And I think that is probably going to be something that's going to be even greater for us when we come back, is empowering students to do more. I've got ideas, things I want to do, and some I've stolen from other people that I've heard and things. But I think a lot of it is going to be, how do I empower our students from here on out to help be in a world where it's weird for an adult to be, but a kid can really connect and do some really cool things.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. David, you shared a lot of wisdom already, but I'd love to give you an opportunity to share with our listeners maybe some other tips that you've learned along the way, things that you'd like to share with others. You've got a lot of longevity in ministry, and maybe some of those tips are going to come from that, just like how to stay in there for the long haul, and just keep going, even in the middle of tough times, even in the middle of pandemics, even in the middle of, the things that you're not really sure, where God is calling you, whether it's to Nashville or back to Texas.
Yeah, sure. I knew that question was coming. And so I started thinking about, what if I wanted to pass something on, and I've got three things. That's all right. Good minister has points. No,
that's right.
But I started thinking what would be the three most important things for me. And I think number one is networking with other youth pastors and having relationships like, knowing you, Steve, and knowing other people in the DYM world. And that's been as for many people, has been a huge network for us in ministry, and would not trade that for the world, is to have some close friends and people that have ideas, knock off, steal ideas from each other and share ideas. And then even locally, we have I'm networked well with our youth pastors here. When I came back to Nacogdoches, I really had a desire to do things with other churches, and we have a great network. We do a weekend retreat every year together. There's 13 churches in our area. Nice. And we come together and do a retreat together and do, last year Josh Griffin came and spoke at it for us.
That's cool.
So, it's just been a great network. And I think it's important, for me to be in this for 26 years. I have friends that I talk to on a weekly basis, and one of my best friends that we were serving in Nashville in different churches in the same time. We were both single when we went there. We met every Thursday and played golf and just kind of vented and talked and shared ideas. And both of us are still in youth ministry today. And so, and we still, we talk or text on the phone weekly, if not daily. And so I think it's important to have a network of people that are there with you, all ages. All the people that I talk to are not, that my age. A lot of younger guys and girls that are ladies that are in that. And so just to network with and to talk with. And so I think it's really important to know that, to not do it alone, but to know you've got people there that want to be a support for you. So I think that's important to network.
Yeah.
Another thing I think for me was when you're in a church our size, and youth group our size. Our youth group is for our church size pretty good size. We have about 150 that come on a regular basis, somewhere around there, and so I can't do 150 kids by myself. And so I knew that if I was going to do that, I was going to have to multiply myself, and so that was really just I inherited a team that was really good, and most of them are still with me after 13 years.
Nice.
And even the ones that just left because they felt God called them to another area of ministry in the church, and so we've just trained them. And when I came in, I just said, we're a team. I'm not going to make a decision without discussing it with you first. I want us to be a team. I want you to feel like you have input and that this is as important to you. One day God's going to call me away from this church, and one way or another, He's going to call me from this church, and I want the ministry to continue because of the fact that they have ownership in it. So I train them to build relationships. Like I said earlier, I want them to feel like it's their little youth group that they have, and it changes yearly, sure, but they get a group of people, and just I want them to know it's more than just a small group, more than just a Sunday school class, that it's a ministry for them. And so they've all bought into it. They're great. They if I send a message out to them saying, hey, I want to do this, they're all in. And I'm doing a thing for our seniors, try to honor our seniors right now because school got canceled. And most places it's true, but Texas this last week just found out school's canceled for the rest of the year, so no graduations. So I got my senior group together and just said, here's what I think we ought to do. They're so excited. They're going to you just tell us when you want to go. We're going to drop signs that say FBC NAC is proud of this senior, and we're going to put it in their yard, do all this kind of fun stuff for them. And they're like, let's do it. Let's go. And so they're like taking off work to go drive around town with me and drop these off. And so they're into that. And then I think the last thing I want to just kind of share, because it really impacted me in the last year, is communicate with parents early and often. And I'd kind of gotten, I'm a parent of a youth, and I should have known this, but about a year ago, I just kind of started seeing lack of participation from parents. And I was like, what's going on? Why are parents seem checked out? And a good friend of mine on my youth team, who we grew up together, just said, man, I'm not hearing anything as a parent. And I went, And so I just really started ramping up the communication with parents and built a website just for them and texting them and writing letters, just really upping that communication. I'm beginning to see more buy-in now from parents, and really when the parents get bought in, the kids will get bought in.
Yeah.
And so I would say, don't let that become secondary. Make sure parents know what's going on, keep them communicated, give them resources, everything. I just try to put as much stuff, they can sift through it, but try to put as much stuff as I can in their hands to help them be better, effective parents and communicators. And I'm seeing the dividends from that. So yeah, communicate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And it's those are some great points. I mean, I think if everybody just put those three things in place, we'd all take huge steps up in our ministry for sure. David, thank you so much for being on today. I'm sure that people are going to want to connect with you. They're going to want to, especially in this digital world, we're online even more. So, what are the ways that people can get a hold of you and ask you more questions, maybe follow up on some of the stuff that you talked about today?
Sure. You can find me on social media. I do Instagram, and I do Facebook, and I do Twitter. And on Instagram and Twitter, it's my full name. My name is kind of a common name, so there's a lot of David Reeds out there. So I'm David Allen Reed, at David Allen Reed on both Instagram and on Twitter. And Allen's Allen, the right way to spell that, and Reed is Reed. So, those are two ways you can connect with me. I'm on those a lot. I'm on Facebook. Connect with me on Facebook as well. I don't have a website or anything like that. So, so love to talk. One of the things that I'm getting to do more and more of as I get older is a lot of people connect and say, hey, I got a question about this. And I've got a lot of students now and former interns that are in ministry, and they call me all the time. And I'm really finding a lot of joy in that. So just being just being hopefully somebody that can help and make them better too. So yeah. And email, I have an email. It's davidreed0406@gmail.com. So that's my personal email, and use it for whatever. And so if they want to connect with me, ask questions, love to do it. So
cool. Yeah, we'll put all these the addresses and links and everything in our show notes, so people can just kind of click on those and find you and ask you all the questions. So
yeah,
we'll send you there. Man, David, it's been a blast to talk to you today, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, Steve, it's an honor. Thank you. It really is. I don't use that word lightly, but for somebody to think that I have something to offer really means a lot. So an honor and a privilege to get to talk to you today as well.
Yeah, well, the honor is definitely both ways, I guess, then. Well, God bless your ministry, man.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
We are all learning so much in ministry right now, aren't we? I mean, I know some of you may be listening to this way after the fact, after the COVID-19 pandemic is all done and we're out of quarantine and life has moved on and all those sort of things. But right now, in the middle of all this, I feel like we're learning so much and relearning so many things. And I'm so grateful to have this conversation with David today to just kind of process a little bit of what God is teaching us in the middle of all of this situation that we are currently in. And if you have not connected with anybody, please do me a favor and friend us or follow us on social media. We would love to do that and tell me what God is teaching you through this time. I would love to hear that from you all. And we can kind of, iron sharpens iron, right? As scripture says. And so let's be there for each other. And if you haven't connected with other youth workers in your community and networks and stuff that exist online, be sure to do that. I'm just going to say, especially during this time where a lot of us are isolated physically, let's not be isolated in our relationships with each other and spiritually and all that sort of thing. But thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I want to thank our sponsor for the episode. That's G-Shades Student Curriculum. You can check out their website at gshades.org. And when you order, be sure to use the promo code STUMINPOD. That's STUMINPOD to receive 5% off your order. And we are so grateful for G-Shades for sponsoring this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast. And we just want to encourage you guys, again, follow us on social media, but also subscribe, share this with other people. And if you like what you hear, leave us a positive comment on your favorite podcast app. That helps so much. You have no idea how much that helps us. But thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for always being here. We're going to be back with another episode pretty soon. But until then, may God bless your ministry.